Hey everyone, my name is James and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Welcome to Oil and Gas Energy Transition, Emerging Applications and Enabling Technologies. Joining us today are two speakers from Moxa. Our first speaker is Ross Mahler. Ross brings over 15 years of experience in product marketing and sales enablement, having supported some of the largest customers in oil and gas, in power and industrial automation sectors. With extensive knowledge of industrial Internet of Things, Ross excels in developing intelligent devices and analytical software, driving business development and managing large-scale projects in challenging environments worldwide. Also joining us today is Mike Werning. Mike is a senior field applications engineer here at Moxa, and he brings over 30 years of experience in industrial networking, embedded computing, software, and systems. He offers consultation for customers designing industrial automation systems and delivers training for industry professionals. Mike holds a degree in computer science and has earned several networking certifications. Next, I'll go through some housekeeping items before we jump into our presentation. The webinar is going to be 60 minutes, including time for questions at the end. If you'd like to submit questions, please use that Q&A function in Zoom. You will also see the occasional poll questions pop up, so we encourage you to participate in those. The recording will be shared with everyone, so you can go back and watch the webinar on demand, and there will also be a survey at the end of the webinar. We appreciate your feedback on the presentation. I'll also mention that some of our presenters in some of the areas, there's some bad weather going on, so hopefully everything goes smoothly, but just want to give everybody a heads up. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our presentation, guys.
Thanks, James. All right, so today we'll be covering the transition that's occurring in the oil and gas industry, followed by some specific examples of applications, such as geothermal drilling and the use of renewable energy technologies. Then Mike Werning is going to discuss the growing trend towards improving cybersecurity and Moxa's proven secure networking solutions that are trusted by our customers. And we'll wrap up with some Q&A from the audience. So the oil and gas industry that your grandfathers knew is not the same today. Traditional oil and gas companies have been expanding their scope of operations to include exploration and production of renewable energy. They've also been improving the way they run these facilities to minimize the impact of the environment. This means that the energy industry has become more than just power gen and transmission providers. Oil and gas companies are evolving and doing the right things for both the planet and for their stakeholders. Now, to achieve these changes, they're implementing some critical projects to accomplish their goals. These include digital transformation to maximize efficiencies and minimize costs. They're improving their network security and adding redundancies to the production systems. And finally, they're integrating renewable energy sources to ensure they never lose power, even in the most remote locations. Now, upstream oil and gas wells can easily remain in operation for 35 to 50 years. And Moxa's diverse portfolio is uniquely suited to support these applications throughout their long life cycle as different protocols and technologies have evolved. Starting with our import serial device servers that securely connect very old legacy equipment that's found everywhere in the oil field today. Then we move to our Ethernet switches, routers, and firewalls that provide excellent OT networking management of all the devices on site. And we're quite proud that Moxa is a proven leader of edge compute solutions that support IoT architectures for both on-premise and cloud infrastructures that utilize the latest cellular and Wi-Fi technologies. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the first poll of the webinar. The answers here that we're looking for is, yes, my company is currently utilizing renewable energy. We're planning on utilizing renewables in the next year. You're going to utilize them in the next 3 years, or no, we're actually not planning to utilize some renewables in our operations. And give everybody a few seconds to fill in. Looks like we're getting some good responses. combination of, it looks like they're currently and planning to utilize are the main ones, I believe. All right, I think that's pretty much mostly everybody. James, you want to share the poll?
Yep. Just shared the poll with everybody.
Excellent. All right, we'll jump on to the next. All right, so now we're going to cover one of the emerging applications that we're seeing in the market. The first one in particular is geothermal drilling. I'm sure most of you have heard about this in the news lately. In fact, Bill Gates recently posted a YouTube video highlighting Fervo Energy's geothermal drilling project that you have in Utah. We'll include a link in this video, the notes sections for the webinar, so you can check it out at a later date. But it's some pretty informational content they have there. For reference, Fervo system utilizes Helmerich & Payne's oil and gas drilling rig, and it leverages their fracking technologies to generate that geothermal power. I'll be explaining a little bit more about this in the next slide. So in the US, there's two primary systems used for geothermal drilling. The first is closed loop systems. They only require one well bore because cold water is sent down the outside perimeter of the pipe to the hot rock below. And that super hot water and steam is then produced and comes back up the inside of the well. And at the very top surface system, that's where you have a rotating turbine that generates the power. The world's largest development of geothermal field is actually located in the Geysers. That's just north of San Francisco, California. This massive complex has about 18 different power plants that are fed by 350 wells and creates this dry steam power that it produces. So the next style that I wanted to talk about is the enhanced geothermal systems, or EGS. This requires a drilling rig to artificially construct the system by utilizing hydraulic fracturing technologies. And EGS actually involves two separate well bores. So as you see on the left, you got one where the cold water is flowing down and hitting the rocks where it's heated up. And then on the second well bore is actually where the steam comes up and is powered to the top source for drives. As mentioned earlier, the Fervo Energy project in Utah utilizes this type of technology. This system is more flexible than the closed loop systems because mainly you can control the supply based on the power demand that you have at any given time. And it can be utilized practically anywhere around the globe, not just in limited applications where there might be short or shallow heated rock. One of the critical questions, however, at this time, in this stage of these technologies is, can geothermal energy operate economically compared to the initial costs that it takes and compared to typical, whether that's coal, natural gas, power sources today. So that's something that we're going to continue to see and track once government subsidies maybe in the future go away, if that's still a viable opportunity. There's also one more style. I didn't show a picture here today, but there's some startup companies that are actively testing out a new technology. And this utilizes millimeter waves at high frequencies to drill deeper than the conventional drilling tech allows today. For reference, we're talking about 12 miles deep into the Earth's core. And at these extreme depths, the super hot rock is exceeding 600 degrees Fahrenheit. So these extreme temperatures can support base load power, which is rapidly becoming a growing need in the country, especially with the growth in the AI data centers that we're seeing. So the next application I wanted to discuss is the adoption of renewable energy sources by oil and gas operators. Most notably, upstream facilities and remote applications where power is scarce, as we know, if available at all to begin with. They have started to integrate renewables into their power resilience. This includes wind turbines, solar panels, and most importantly, perhaps, the battery energy storage systems. Moxa has proven network solutions for these renewable energy applications, and Mike Werning will cover those later in the presentation. Next, I wanted to discuss really something that's pretty valuable, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, whether it's our end users or integrators, but Moxa helps support our customers with their digital transformation and large-scale projects to minimize the CapEx and OpEx. And how do we do that? Well, we have upfront pre-sales technical support guys, the field application engineers like Mike Werning, And the fact is that they can provide upfront design of the network. They can recommend specific products or ways to do it. They have these proven architectures that can be utilized across the industry and specific applications. We also have a centralized networking licenses that are free and very reasonable compared to the competitors. And also, one of the things we're most proud of is our warranty is the longest in the industry, especially for most products like IPCs. And finally, one thing we really want to hit on the head here is that Moxa provides these services for free to support those customers and keep costs at a minimum. All right, so natural transition, as I mentioned Mike a few times, so we're going to hand it over to Mike Warning.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me get teed up here. Okay, perfect. So this next section, we wanted to talk about some of the cybersecurity trends in the oil and gas industry, and some of the key technology that's used to accomplish these tasks. So as modernization occurs in oil and gas, we're seeing a trend toward increased cybersecurity in new and existing applications. So the modernization of existing applications is driving higher throughput requirements in network devices. So, for example, in order to drive down latency, the application cycle times must speed up. So the amount of data generated and processed also goes up, which drives the need for higher speed network interfaces and capacity in the network itself. There's also a need for higher scalability of existing architectures. This means moving away from flat networks and driving the need for network address translation, for example, for IP reuse and scalability. So cybersecurity is also a prime focus. So this means limiting access to network devices through the implementation of firewalls, for example. It can also involve anti-malware protection close to the edge of the network versus centralized. And then also protecting control protocols from being exploited is also a consideration. So this involves limiting the features of field bus protocols through the use of deep packet inspection. So in order to achieve a more secure design, some of our customers are considering the inclusion of our secure network infrastructure products. These are specifically the EDR and EDF industrial routers and bridge firewalls, and they're including them into the design of their next-gen networks. So these products can help you achieve your goals of achieving a higher security posture in your next design, as well as accommodating the need for the higher throughput. So one of the key technologies I mentioned before is network address translation. So network address translation is the ability to provide scalability of the network by allowing duplication of IP address schemes for different cells. So this also prevents the discovery of devices local to each cell from outside networks. So for example, we have two cells down here. It's in the OT network, cell 1 and cell 2, and they got some PLC assets in there. If we put an EDR or a NAT router in front of them, they can each reuse the same IP addressing scheme. In this way, you can keep expanding in the network without having a greater an impact to the overall design. So that's why natting is very popular for as an expansion and scalability. It also prevents scanning of these devices that are only local here. So the other technology I mentioned was the use of the firewall. So firewalls are key technologies to limit access between boundaries in the network. So they can prevent traffic from entering a protected zone from the upper layer network, and they can also enforce segmentation within the OT network between the control zone and supervisory zones. So if you get an advanced firewall, they also support deep packet inspection, which can be used to inspect the field bus protocols to limit the functionality within those protocols. So for example, writing these PLCs down here might speak Ethernet IP, they might be Modbus, TCP, something like that. And you can use the firewall to limit the scope of the functions within those protocols and control what they can do. So the other thing I mentioned was IDS IPS, and this is the ability to detect and protect against malware in the system. So IDS stands for Intrusion Detection System. It allows for the detection and notification of malicious traffic, but it doesn't block it. Okay, so it just lets you know that you have this on the network. So a better option though is IPS, which is intrusion prevention. So the IPS allows you to detect and notify, but it also can block the traffic from making its way through the network. So the IPS can be used to protect against the external threats from higher level networks, as well as protecting vulnerable devices at the edge of the network that might not be patched. So, and that's one of the value propositions that Moxa brings to bear is that we can bring this level of protection very close to the edge of the network at a with a cost-effective solution. So think of an HMI or a computer, embedded computer, or something like that, that might not be at the latest, greatest firmware patch level. By putting one of these EDF firewalls in front of it, you can do the inspection of the traffic on the network and make sure that any of the known exploits that might attack that operating system can be blocked before it ever gets there. Okay, so this brings us to our next poll question. So let's see. Is your organization upgrading existing cybersecurity systems or developing a new secure networking strategy? Okay, so we've got a variety of answers here. If you could go ahead and select which one of these is most pertinent to your organization. And we have, let's see, it looks like some of you are still putting in your votes here. And as soon as it settles out, we'll share the results of that poll to you. Looks like we still have a few more people. Okay, why don't we go ahead and share those results? And okay, so it looks like 63% of you said yes, you're currently upgrading your cybersecurity systems, which is awesome. Some of you have already have done that and are planning to develop a new security strategy, which is also great. And then some of you don't have plans. Maybe that's because you've already got something in place. I don't know, but could be something to pay attention to in the future. So great. Thanks for that. Okay, so next let's take a look at some of the examples where this key technology can be used in oil and gas applications. So in process automation, the interface between a safety system and a distributed control system is a critical integration point, particularly in industries like oil and gas, chemicals, and power. So these two systems are typically kept logically and physically separate for safety reasons, but they must communicate for coordinated operation. So this interface must be secured. So a solution to this can be through the use of the EDF firewall. So the EDF is used as a transparent firewall to secure that communication channel. So the packet flows between the two systems are restricted through the firewall, and deep packet inspection can be used to restrict any of the field bus protocols that might be going through there as well. So example firewall rules might include allowing Modbus TCP, but maybe for only specific IPs or only allowing read-only access for your OPC UA data, or blocking any write commands, for example, from the DCS to the SIS. And of course, logging any unauthorized access attempts to either of these systems to make sure that you have notification and somebody can react to the security breach. But the EDF 1002, it's a 2 gigabit industrial next generation firewall. There's 2 ports on it, and which makes it ideal for bump in the wire installation, basically minimal impact to any sort of IP addressing scheme that you have. So great for brownfield deployments where you don't want to change the IP addressing scheme of the devices on either side. So our next application is for secure drilling operations. So here you can see sort of an example, or you've got a drilling rig and a control system. You've got a router up here that's controlling access from third parties and the corporate access. And then you've got, the control system that's actually, doing all the operations and providing connectivity to the various subsystems on the rig. So the requirements for these systems call for segmentation between the control, the corporate networks, and the third-party networks. In addition to this segmentation, high performance and high throughput are needed to support these next generation applications. And then because there's always more than one, you need network address translation for scalability, so you can add more and more rigs to the network. And then secure communications, secure remote communications through encrypted channels to allow for access to the control system as needed as well. So a good solution here is the EDRG 9010. And this is our NAT router, which provides high throughput with all gig interfaces and high performance packet processing. So it also supports NAT, VPN, firewall, deep packet inspection, capabilities to filter the traffic, and IPS malware protection to protect against a malware from getting into these systems. So as you go down into the control system itself, you see the control system switches can also include the EDS G4000 series, which is our latest DIN rail layer 2 switches, which are also high performance. They support VLANs, access control lists, and are certified to IEC 62443 level 2. So the last application is I wanted to address is well stimulation. Oh, actually, not the last application, the third of the last. This application, well stimulation. So in these networks, you have the concept of remote vehicles. They could be pump trucks. They could be skids, various vehicles. In these applications, they require network address translation. And this is to support the reusable IP addressing scheme from vehicle to vehicle. Since these vehicles also have space constraints on them, so combining multiple functions into a single device, such as NAT and a layer 2 switch, that's also an advantage. So the 8010, EDR 8010 is a good solution there. It's cost effective for these applications. It's an all-in-one design with a 10-port layer 2 switch and supports NAT and routing. It also supports a firewall and deep packet inspection and optional IDS IPS if you were going to go that route for malware protection. Okay, and finally, as oil and gas companies transition toward more clean energy solutions, battery energy storage from processing hydrogen, for example, is another application. So in battery energy storage systems, it's critical to protect the system from malware and interference from bad actors that may want to cause damage through malfunction. These secure routers are perfect for protecting these systems using the firewall capabilities I spoke about before. With that, you can whitelist the protocols. In addition, you can utilize the network address translation so that each one of these battery container modules is using the same IP addressing scheme internally. So it allows for these battery energy storage solutions to scale to large scale without without all the problems that go with routing protocols. So internal to the battery containers, you can see that we're featuring the EDS G4000 again. And again, this is for secure, high-speed, redundant connections to each module. And Moxa also provides ARM-based embedded computers and IO Logic IO modules, which are used internally to monitor the systems that are operating inside each one of these containers.
Yeah, Mike, before you transition, I think, one of the important things to talk about here is, as you have maybe these traditional oil and gas customers, whether it's upstream or midstream, that are starting to utilize these techs like we're showing here on the renewable side. Again, we have both yourself on the oil and gas side, we have Hans on the energy side, that we can partner together to be able to provide those sort of integrations that they're looking for. If they're brownfield opportunity, where they're trying to integrate it, or they're designing something new from scratch. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of that. We can join together.
Yeah, good point, Ross. And of course, this is one application of it. They don't all look like this, but Moxa has plenty of different technologies that can be implemented in these designs, depending on your end needs. Okay, so here's a summary overview of some of the router products that I mentioned that can be used in these oil and gas applications. The entry price point is certainly with the EDF. So this is the bump in the wire firewall bridge. So ideal for brownfield applications where you don't want to change any of the IP addressing of an existing application, but you want to provide these kinds of features like firewall, deep packet inspection, and whatnot. So a perfect solution for that in a small form factor as well. So it can be pushed very close to the edge of the network. As you move up into the EDR, these are our edge routers. So they vary in capability. So the EDR 8010, I would call this more like the entry point. It has mainly, fast Ethernet ports on the LAN and gigabit ports on the for uplinks to the rest of the network. And they feature all the same sorts of protective features as the dedicated firewall bridge, but it adds things like VPN and network address translation and routing protocols as well. Then on the other end here, you have the 9010, which is the high performance version of that. In this case, all the ports are gigabit, and the fiber optic ports up here scale to 2.5 gigabits per second as well. And again, all the same feature set as the 8010 when it comes to software. So from a layer 2 switch point of view, we have a variety of solutions there. For rack mount solutions, we have scalable rack mount modular solutions that can be used in, like, for example, a data van where you've got a 19-inch rack and you're going to aggregate lots of connections. You could use something like the RKS there. And then closer to the edge in the control system, it's very common for all those solutions to be DIN rail. And here we have the EDS G4000, which is IEC 62443 certified, and the EDS 500E series that is also available for those applications. So with that, we're going to transition back to Ross.
Yep, thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So the Secure Networking Solution Day is not your typical PowerPoint party where OEMs are just promoting themselves. This is truly an education for customers that want to learn more about the value of cybersecurity for stakeholders, the networking segmentation of OT operations, and secure network management with threat detection. So what we do is we discuss the trends that are happening in the industries and provide solutions for specific applications that are directly relevant to end users or integrators. An important thing to note here is that the content is not written in stone. So rather, the intent of this is to customize the subjects based on what matters most to the audience in their time that they have available for this. The big reason why customers have found so much value from these solution days that we've been doing the past year is that it's tailored for them. Again, we'll come in based on the time you have available and what you care about most to make sure that you get the most value out of this sort of event. All right. So now we have our last poll of the day. This is just to wrap up to see if you guys are interested in being contacted for the following. So what we have on here is the solution day that I just mentioned for secure networking, discussing any specific projects that you might have that you're interested, that are actively ongoing or about to come up, or if you'd like to just learn more about Moxa in general, specific applications. So it looks like we got a lot of good feedback coming in. Some specifically about the solution day. And like I said, the solution day has really picked up recently. We've had a lot of demand for that, and Marty and Felipe, our cybersecurity guys, have really gotten some really great experience out of it, as well as the value that's come from it when they're discussing this with customers.
Thanks, Ross, for sharing about those solution days, and both of you guys for all the information around these emerging technologies. Like Ross mentioned, yeah, these solution days, our customers have found it pretty valuable because they're able to get like a live in-session training, if you will, not necessarily like product training, but around solutions around the industry. So this has been really great for us as of late. So yeah, as Ross mentioned, this is our last poll question, but we are making pretty good time here, and that actually allows us some more time for the Q&A part of this. So why don't I go ahead and start and tee up the first one that I see here. The first question is, what is the standard for cybersecurity for who uses Moxa? So I guess Moxa standard cybersecurity standard, I should say.
Okay, so I can take that one, I guess. So Moxa follows the IEC 62443. So that's been widely adopted worldwide as the security standard for industrial control systems. And it has wide applicability to lots of other standards that are out there. So some of the other frameworks that are out there do refer back to 62443. So that's what we're following. As a company itself, we're certified to 4.1, which is our processes and policies and procedures and the way we do business and the way we design our products are compliant with that security standard. And then our latest products that we're generating now, some come certified from the IEC to various security levels within 4-2.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Mhm.
Here's another one, also related to cybersecurity. How can I identify if a router or firewall is being affected by an external attack? Is there any remote diagnostic tool to identify and log the source of the cybersecurity attack?
Yeah, so basically, when you're configuring the device, you're configuring how you want it to alert. So there's a number of ways that can happen. It can happen via syslog. So when the device is being attacked, it's providing information, feedback to your security team via syslog. Or we have a security system monitor called MX Security, which can be used to collect all the advanced security alerts and notifications from the firewall. Does it make sense? We also have other features that are built in, like access control list to limit access to the control plane of the switch or router itself, so that if somebody's trying to hammer the device, trying to DOS it or something like that, you can get notified of that as well.
Okay, great. And then this next question, I think you pretty much alluded to, but does your router solution utilize a central management and configuration console?
Yeah, so that would be the MX Security, which is optional, really. So as you scale, as you get lots of devices in the network, it becomes more, I guess, more important to be able to centrally manage this kind of stuff. You just have one or two and they're not remotely connected to anything, or maybe all of them are not connected to anything, then it doesn't really make sense. But if you're trying to centrally manage, deploy firewall rules and deploy the IDS, IPS feature updates, things of that nature, then you should have a solution like MX Security. And we're also adding that functionality into our MX View 1 software as a plugin module. So in the very near future here, you're going to have that available to you as well as an option.
Okay, great. Here's another one. Do you have Ethernet APL switches? APL meaning advanced physical layer.
If you don't see them on the website, then they're not available currently today. And that's about what I could say about that.
I know, just for reference to add a little bit to that, that we have been developing some APL products. They're not, like you said, maybe ready to go to market just yet, but something that we've been developing, and in the next year or two, I think we'll be in a better ecosystem position to be able to launch those. So.
Got it.
Yeah, that's something if you've got specific needs, please reach out to your sales contact and get them involved because we'd be able to share more in a private meeting.
Yeah, and just one more note about APL. So I think a lot of the consortium and the companies that have been involved in APL obviously had a good wave. I think something that's kind of been slowing it down a little bit is the adoption. As you can imagine, the true benefit of implementing APL would be that your entire facility, right, network runs on that. And so I think there's been a little bit of a slowing or adherence where people haven't wanted to jump all the way into it because not every product is available to be APL. So I think that's kind of one of the reasons why the adoption has taken a little bit longer for reference.
Here's a question about solution days that we were talking about. So, is it 2 hours or a half day type of event?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Mike. So,
Mhm.
typically to cover the content, if we're going to do the entire agenda, that's 2.5, 3 hours. But the one thing I want to mention and kind of do a callback is that we tailor the content to whatever the customer, the audience is really looking for. So if they only have 2 hours to do it, we can cut it down. If they only want to focus on certain subjects or areas, applications, we can definitely do that. But I would say if you want to do the full thing, it's maybe 2.5 to 3 hours.
Okay, great. Here's another question that just came in. Can you tell me if any of the advanced firewall features require a license to use?
Yeah, I can take that one. So, yes. So if you're going to use the IDS IPS, that's dependent on a license. And the reason behind that is that needs to be updated regularly. And so it's a subscription sort of thing. But that's the only piece right there is the IDS IPS license internal to the router itself that would be licensed. Things like the deep packet inspection. So when you're trying to look at like, Modbus TCP, Ethernet IP, or any of those other sorts of field bus protocols that you can do deep packet inspection on, that's included with the product price. So you don't have to license each one of those modules one by one in order to use that.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Mhm.
Here's another one on firewalls. Can you explain more about the difference between the bridge firewall and router firewall?
Sure. Yeah, that's a common question, and I think it has to do with the terminology. Sometimes you hear that a bridge firewall called as like a transparent firewall or a bump in the wire. And the easiest way to think about this is let's just say you've got an HMI and you want to protect that. It's already in the system and it's already got an IP address and you've got PLCs or whatever that talk to it. The transparent firewall is designed to just drop in the middle of that communication path. So you don't have to change the IP addressing of any of the devices that are currently communicating. So it makes it very simple and very easy to add security to an existing application. So that's what the transparent firewall is, just like a bump in the wire. The flows go through it, and they're either blocked or allowed through. So the router firewall is totally different. So in that same application where you've got an HMI or something on one side and maybe it's a PLC on the other, those have to be on separate subnets. So it's either one is either behind a NAT, for example, or it could just be through a routed interface. So you've got two separate subnets that you're uh, you need to have in the system. So that is going to affect your current design, basically. So the way the filtering happens is when the traffic goes through the router and crosses those subnets from one subnet A to subnet B. That's where the filtering happens.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Another one. Great questions, guys, by the way. Keep them coming. We do have time to answer a few more here. So, layer three is possible with Moxa. What is the main limitation that would exist to have all layer three equipment?
Well, I suppose it's just the number of VLANs that would be available within the routers. These are designed for 32 or less VLANs. That's what we're supporting today. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we can't support more in the future. But that would be a limitation today, is the number of VLAN interfaces that are supported in the router. Their software products are basically, they're not a layer 3 switch that operates at wireline speed. So software routers have an impact in the ability of the CPU to handle the traffic that flows through them. So that's another main difference there.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think geothermal drilling activity will grow faster over the next 3 years compared to traditional oil and gas drilling?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Mike. So yeah, I think personally, I believe that in the U.S. you'll start to see a large uptick, let's say, in geothermal drilling for the next 3 years. And really, we're already starting to see a little bit of it for new wells from on the oil and gas side that are down a little bit. This is due mainly, right, to the rapidly increasing energy demand that we're having in the U.S., combined with the price volatility of oil, which could continue. And seems to always be a little bit of the cycles that we go through. Also, one of the things to note is that there was recent legislature that passed that enables fast tracking of environmental assessments for new projects like these. Typically, that assessment took 2 years on average, and now we're looking at them to be completed within 2 weeks. So that'll unlock these geothermal investments, which are very appealing to energy companies. So I definitely see that growing at a very rapid pace, for sure.
Okay. Another question here. Do you have other products that have the NAT feature only?
Yes, we do. So I think you're referring to the NAT 102 and NAT 108. So we have devices that are just a couple of ports on them, and that's the NAT 102, and it just has NAT and a very simple firewall, just very limited functionality as compared to the routers. But if that's all you need, sometimes that's all you need is a device to do network address translation, especially in a factory environment, for example, or machine, panel builder sort of environment where they just want to have the same IP addressing space in all of the panels that they're building. A real simple solution is the NAT 102. The NAT 102 is also Class 1 Div 2 as well, so it can be used in oil and gas environments. And then we have a sort of a larger one there that was just released this year called the NAT 108 that has a similar feature set, just with more ports on it as well.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like I just have one more question here. So unless more roll in, this is the last one. Does Moxa charge integrators for pre-sales technical support?
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that one, James.
Sure.
Yeah, so just a little bit of a callback, to be honest with you, that Moxa does not charge our customers, whether that's an end user or an integrator, for these field application engineers, such as Mike and Hans, that we have, for pre-sales network design or for post-installation troubleshooting support. Really, to be frank, that this is one of the biggest values that we hear from our customers, why they really appreciate us. And again, we're here to help you guys, whether it's making it upfront, commissioning it, or if you do ever have any issues with the products over the long term. So yeah, no charge for that.
All right, awesome. It looks like that was the last question that we had in the queue. Great questions, everybody, and thank you for engaging with us. That will pretty much wrap up this webinar here. It looks like we'll be able to give you guys some time back on your calendars. Looks like around 15 minutes, so that's awesome. I just want to thank Ross and Mike. Thank you guys so much for sharing about enabling technologies for emerging oil and gas applications. The recording for the webinar will be available to everybody afterwards. We will send an email out with that information. And with that, that wraps up this webinar. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and to our presenters. Okay. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.